I mean, so how good is he going to be? Not only was he good, I mean, he was flat out great under those conditions, under all the pressure of what he had to do and how he had to get this offense in gear, all the expectations that were heaped upon him. And all I could sit here and say is, wow. I mean, wow. It was a tremendous performance. His accuracy was great. His ability to get rid of the ball was great. His ability to get to a second receiver was great. All do it while you have this rain coming down just nonstop. And I have to say that was about as good a performance as we have seen this year from a quarterback, given the circumstances. And there were only 2 quarterbacks yesterday who threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no interceptions. The other one happened to be Trevor Lawrence, who led his team back to just an unbelievable come-from-behind victory over the Baltimore Ravens. So Mike White said, hello, I'm here. I'm here, and I'm staying here. And now it's up for this young man to stay on the field, because I feel like it's deja vu. We went down this road with him last year, and he was really the only reason to be excited last year, his performance against the Bengals, especially with the way the defense was last year. Remember, that was the 32nd ranked defense.
Yes.
That's no longer the case. And if you have somebody that actually can complete passes and create first downs and get everybody involved. I think he hit 9 different receivers. So you have guys like Elijah Moore no longer bitching. You have guys like Garrett Wilson who's going to say, going to say all the right things after a game like this, as opposed to what he said after last week's game in New England about how it's unacceptable.
Yeah.
So for and it's the Jets. It's the Jets. It's like unbelievable that this is happening 2 years in a row. But now the difference between this year and last year is that the Jets have a legitimate shot. They have a great defense. They have solid special teams. And now all of a sudden they have a quarterback that's reignited the offense. So all I could sit here is say, God bless you, Mike White, because the game that you played yesterday was exactly what the Jet fan needed. It's exactly what what was expected of you. And I would say that he outdid any expectations that anybody could have had given the circumstances and the environment yesterday.
Yeah, I didn't think it was a fluke last year. I don't think this is a fluke either. Now, do I think he's going to go and win the Super Bowl and have a movie made about him like Kurt Warner? I don't think that that's going to happen yet. I mean, everything's on the table. Everything's a possibility after yesterday. But he is good enough to take this team to the playoffs. And I think maybe even good enough to win them a playoff game. I mean, the way he plays, if you just forget about the name, where he came from, where he was drafted, and you just woke up and watched that game played, you would say the Jets finally have a quarterback. And I said the same thing last year after the Bengal game. If you had no idea who this guy was and where he came from, you would say finally the Jets were able to select a quarterback in the top 10 who was going to take them to the promised land. So that's why I think this is not a fluke. And oh, by the way, and I know Jerry's going to play some of the sound this morning in a little bit, it's the same stuff we heard last year from that locker room. They love this guy. This just isn't like the typical, hey, the quarterback played well, we have his back stuff. This is like over the top. They love this guy. This is exactly what the organization needed at the right time. And by the way, we were slamming him for waiting maybe a little bit too long and whatever was going on with Zach. Rob Saleh made that decision and made it, I think, at the perfect time.
Well, he made it at the perfect time, and I think all of us believe that, Zach helped move that along with his comments after the game and how everybody around here and how the team was responding to Zach. And, unfortunately, Zach looked terrible yesterday standing on the sideline. I feel bad for him, but you know what? This is big boy league. This is big boy time. You got to learn how to fit in. You got to learn how to lead a team, and you got to learn how to be the guy that they drafted you to be. And Mike White has sat and waited and waited and waited and waited. Has been a good teammate. He's been a good backup. He's been very supportive of Zach. He's saying all the right things. But now it's his chance to shine in the sun. And there's no way. The only way I think that Zach Wilson would even remotely get close to the field again will be if this kid gets hurt or has one of those 4 interception games.
Which he did against the Bills. And remember last year, it wasn't because Zach was benched. It was because Zach was hurt. And then Mike White had that game, and it sort of coincided with Zach Wilson coming back. Now,
and he also got hurt against Indianapolis. I mean, like part of...
he was hurt. Right, exactly. He got hurt against Indianapolis and came back and played the Bills game where he probably wasn't 100% and threw those 4 picks.
Yeah, I think that the quarterback question has been answered. There's no reason even to discuss it anymore.
Yeah.
There's now it's the rest of the season. It's his team, and what he does from this point on will determine if he becomes, like the Jets version of Taylor Heineke.
I think he could be better.
Well, he could be better. He's already shown 2 games in which, Taylor Heineke has played well. I feel like he's just like a rough and tumble guy running all over the place and making plays, and he's like the Energizer Bunny. Mm-hmm. Mike looks like he can handle the pocket. He's very calm, and he throws a very accurate ball, especially in those conditions yesterday. That's ridiculous. Phil and I were over there commiserating before the game, like, oh, my God, you believe he's got to start the game in this crap?
Yeah.
Over there? That's going to be awful.
Wind, too.
Right, exactly. Then all of a sudden, the nose is down, the ball's hitting guys in the hands, and they're all catching it. And
it's amazing how that offense looks when there's a guy running who knows what he's doing.
Well, I mean, the great thing about what he did is he got a lot of people involved. So everybody
10
got
guys,
involved.
I think, yeah.
And by the way, there's nobody talking about the offensive coordinator right now. Everybody seems to be very happy because the offense got going. And then the other surprise move by the Jets on offense was a little-known running back by the name of Zonovan Knight. And who the hell is Zonovan Knight?
We found out yesterday.
We found out yesterday, and the fact that they told him on Saturday that he was going to play on Sunday, was a shock also. And all he did was put up 103 yards of scrimmage. I think that's the best debut I think a Jet player's ever had in his debut. And what a nice little find that is. And I remember talking to Joe Douglas when he first took over with the Jets, and when he was with the Baltimore Ravens, he was on the staff of the Baltimore Ravens personnel grouping, and he used to really work hard at finding the undrafted free agents. And he always wanted the undrafted free agents, the Bart Scotts of the world, to turn out to be great players as compared to like those high draft picks. And that was like the little competition within the room at the Baltimore Ravens. Well, this is one of those kids. This happens to be a kid that's undrafted, started, I believe, 3 years at NC State, was their leading rusher for 3 years. And all of a sudden, here he comes out of the blue against, again, a depleted defense. Let's be realistic about that.
They've been terrible since they traded away those 2 guys on defense.
And what will be interesting now, they go on the road this week to Minnesota. What will be interesting will be the other side of the dynamic where Minnesota is going to score some points. Justin Jefferson's going to be making plays. We all know that. So now the offense, as opposed to playing an opposing team that has a depleted defense and an offense that can't move anyway, now you're playing against a team that you can throw against, because you could throw against Minnesota. Mac Jones looked like Tom Brady against Minnesota on Thursday night.
Yep.
So you'll be able to do that. You'll be able to throw the ball against them. The question is, can you keep up with them scoring? Because the defense is going to be taxed this week against one of the top offenses in football.
Yeah, I know. We'll spend a lot of time in this game, but just briefly because you brought it up, I think this is a terrible matchup for the Vikings for a couple of reasons. One, what you just said, now they can throw the ball with Mike White, and at every single Viking game I watch, there are wide receivers wide open in the middle of the field every game, and they have not found a way to fix that. And also, you want to talk about Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson at times is a one-man show. Sauce Gardner, you put him on Justin Jefferson, that's going to be a battle. It's going to be tougher than most corners that he's faced because he's one of the best corners in football right now.
It will be, but like going back and look at the tape of the Patriot games, they had 2 guys around him almost the entire night.
I know.
And he's still making plays.
He's great, but Sauce, I got to give Sauce respect for what he's done. I mean, he's been great so far this year.
All respect for what they've done.
Right. So I think that's going to be tough for them, and I think that anytime you have a defense that gets after the quarterback, and we're starting to see that more and more with the Jets, then that's an issue for them. So I actually think this is a great matchup for the Jets this week, which scares me up there in Minnesota. But I mean, Mike White, where does the story go from here? I mean, I think he's going to play well up there. I really do, and I think he's going to end up taking them to the playoffs. You can't do what he has done, in the short amount of time that we've seen him, and it be just a total fluke. It's impossible for it to be a total fluke. Now, we've seen total flukes like Matt Flynn. That was a total fluke.
Yeah, but I mean, this guy's had 2 games.
2 of the best games that the Jets have played offensively in a decade.
It really, I mean, he's had 2 Mondays where he's awoken to like Mike White fever.
Yeah.
I mean, think about that. And they're almost a year apart.
I know.
And that's what's the deja vu part of this whole thing. So now he's got to go on the road, just like they had to go on the road to Indianapolis. They're going to be playing indoors. They're going to be playing against a good team that's going to be putting up numbers. So now you got to do it again. And that's the thing, the hardest thing for any quarterback for that matter, even the guys who have done it for years, they have a hard time doing it week to week. Now, I don't necessarily know that that's going to be the case here, simply because the Jets got some offensive playmakers.
Well, yeah.
And it was nice to see Elijah Moore actually get involved.
Right. I know. I mean, it really is amazing that there was just something there. There was no doubt there was something there between Zach Wilson and Elijah Moore. I don't know if they didn't like one another. I don't know if Zach Wilson just didn't get through his progressions enough to find out where Elijah Moore was. Whatever it was, I mean, it's no coincidence that Mike White, who had a great relationship with Elijah Moore last year when he played, all of a sudden he's the only guy that can get him involved.
Well,
Joe Flacco, I guess, maybe a little bit in the beginning of the year, but yeah, just crazy, just absolutely crazy.
You know what it is? Honestly, it's you could be friends with a guy off the field. You could be totally close friends with him. You could like him. You can hang out with him. You could have a lot of similarities, whatever. But once you get on the field, the players know. Everybody knows. Everybody knows whether you're ready or you're not ready. Everybody knows whether or not you are the guy that's going to make the play. And that's why they like Mike White, because they know that he's ready to go and they know he's going to make the plays. The jury is still out on Zach Wilson. He's had moments where he's made some great throws and he's made some really good decisions. And then, they're the bad side of Zach Wilson where, just finally came to a head. But, I just think that once you're on the field, the players all know.
Yeah,
they can tell.
Those throws parallel to the line of scrimmage, those little bubble screen plays that Mike LaFleur likes to put in there. Those things, Mike White just, boom, they're just right there. Zach's airmailing throws, he's throwing them into the ground. Like, I can't even imagine what Mike LaFleur is thinking up in, upstairs where he's like, I could finally run these plays and not worry about my quarterback throwing it 15 feet up into the air, into the sidelines.
Think about this. You would think, okay, and I think the announcer said it yesterday. It was the Fox announcers. I think
it was
Darryl.
Yeah, Darryl Johnston, who I don't know. I think he's terrible now. He's been doing it for a long time. He says the same stuff every week. We've gotten Moose Johnson a couple times. It's this, there's an opportunity. Here's an opportunity. He says opportunity 75 times a game.
All right,
they're going to have a conversation about the opportunity. He stinks. They got to get him out of there.
But
anyway, it was Joe Davis and Darryl Johnson.
I wasn't doing it to go after those guys.
God,
I wasn't doing that. That's your take on things.
Stale.
Well, Joe Davis said a very thing at the beginning of the game saying, both teams are going to rely on their running game because of the environment. It was so bad, it was so wet that, it's going to be really hard to throw the ball. And, I think I probably would have, I know I would have agreed with him before the game started.
Sure, yeah.
And then to watch Mike White just navigate all of that.
I mean, even in the first quarter, Trevor Siemian had like 150 yards of passing in the first quarter.
It was crazy. And the fact that the wide receivers were catching everything.
Yeah. I mean, even so, you saw a bobbled snap on a field goal, so you knew the conditions were tough. I mean, the balls were wet, and Mike White was able to navigate through it. I think Darryl Johnson at the end of the game, too, was like, he goes, man, I tell you that Rob Saleh's going to have a tough decision to make. Does he? Tough decision to make.
Tough decision to make about what?
The quarterback is what he was implying.
Well, the only thing I can tell you is that the announcers do get to sit down with the coaches before the game starts. In other words, they sit and they go over everything. And Rob Saleh did say, and I think they reiterated it on the broadcast yesterday, that it's not an easy decision to sit a kid down. And when you know that you have to sit him down.
Yeah.
And to have these conversations with this kid who you genuinely like and want him to be great. But unfortunately, he's holding the team back.
I'll tell you, it's an easy decision now to keep him sat down.
There is no, that performance yesterday, the only way I could describe it would be it's flawless.
Yeah.
It's a flawless 300-yard, 3-touchdown, no turnover performance in a driving rainstorm.
Yeah. There was one dropped interception that definitely helped him out. But
it happens. For every one that gets tipped up in the air and gets picked off,
you're right.
You can have one. You can have them drop one.
Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And don't forget to hit the red bell so you're notified when we have new content.